Hi, I am Alicia Barrett. I am the community animator at the National Environment and Planning Agency. Today, we're hitting the road just to show you how we use the geospatial technology to collect land use data. But before we do that, there are some in-house things that we have to deal with. Come, let us show you.
Before we go out in the field to collect land use information, we normally create a geodatabase. A geodatabase is a collection of data sets in a single file system.
I am Alicia Barrett.
This geodatabase is needed for us to be able to collect the information that we require in the field. Now, this information is usually hosted on ArcGIS Online, which forms the base for ArcGIS Collector.
Let us show you how we use geospatial technology to
Before we
collect
go
land
out
use data.
in the field to collect
We are
land
here
use
today to collect land use data information.
Normally
But
create
before we
a
collect that land use
geodatabase.
data information,
A
I'd like to explain
geodatabase
the
is a
tool or app
collection
that we're going to
of
use
data
to collect
sets
that
in
data.
a single
And that tool
Hi,
or app is
I am
called
Alicia Barrett.
This
ArcGIS
I'm the community
Collector.
animator at
With
the
is
National
ArcGIS
needed
Environment
Collector,
and
it
Planning
gives
for
us the
us
ability
to
to
be
collect
able to
real-time
we're
collect
hitting
data
the road
the
just
into
to
that
show
data
information
into a
you
that we
how we
require
use
in
that
the
we
the
can
field.
then
geospatial
retrieve
Now,
technology
this
while
to
we're
collect
in the
land
office
use
to
data.
then
is
create
usually
our
hosted
land
Before we do
use
that,
on
there are some
ArcGIS
in-house things that we
Online,
have to
which
do.
forms
Come,
the
Additionally,
base for
ArcGIS Online gives us the
ArcGIS
ability
Collector.
to download
Let us show you how we use
that work
geospatial
offline.
technology to
Before
That
collect
we
means
go
if we
out
do not
in
have
the
internet
field
connection, we
to
can
collect
collect. We are
land
here
use
today to collect. When we return to the office, we can see that
normally
data. But
create
before we
a
collect that land use
geodatabase.
data information,
A
I'd like to
geodatabase
explain the
is a
tool or the app
collection
that we're going
of
to data
data
collection
sets
process.
in a
There's certain
single
information
file
that
system.
capture
I am
our
Alicia
This
information
geodatabase
includes building
at the
ArcGIS
National
Collector,
Environment
number of
and
for
floors
us
and
to
structure,
be
and
able to
real-time
collect
data, other
the
features that we can
information that
identify
we
in that
require
part
in
that we
the
can
field.
then
Now,
retrieve
this
while we're in the
information
office to then
is
create
usually
our
hosted
land
we do
use.
that,
What
on
we're doing here
ArcGIS
is
Online, which
information
forms
the
the
Additionally,
base for
ArcGIS
ArcGIS Collector.
Once we have done that,
Before we go
we
out
do not have
in the
internet
field
connection.
to
GPS
collect
we are
land
here
use
today to collect when we return to the office, we can see that
normally
data. But
create
before we
a
collect that
geodatabase.
land
Hi, I am Alicia Barrett. I am the community animator at the National Environment and Planning Agency. Today, we're hitting the road just to show you how we use the geospatial technology to collect land use data. But before we do that, there are some in-house things that we have to deal with. Come, let us show you.
Before we go out in the field to collect land use information, we normally create a geodatabase.
Hello, my name is Jack Benjamin, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the GIS Day in 2021. This is our 21st anniversary for this day, and its purpose is really grounded in the idea of sharing the great work that GIS professionals and our technology in our field is bringing to the world. Now, it's an amazing thing that happens every year. thousands and thousands of people get together. They form little groups. They bring their maps. They show what they're doing. And it lays down good footprints. My good friend Will I Am says it's a time to soak it up, like with a sponge, and rinse it out. Not only learn today, but also share what you learn to other people. Because GIS is growing very rapidly, as we know. It's impacting almost every field on the planet. And nobody hardly knows about it compared to things like, social media and the like. So this is an opportunity to share with children, showing them these professional activities that we do with maps and geographic data, and introduce also to executives and people who really don't know about our world the whole idea of the geographic approach. Now, this approach is all about integrating layers of information, seeing things holistically, communicating more effectively with maps. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for organizing this event, but also thank you very much for coming. Many of you are holding it in a virtual environment, which I'm really excited to see. While we miss being together, this new media is allowing us to expand even greater the reach of our great work, your great work really, using geography and GIS to make a better world. So thank you. Enjoy the day.
It's all happened here. Everything we've ever known, done, loved, took place on this drifting, spinning ball that's our home. It's where we learned to provide, nurture, protect, thrive. And yet,
wildfires are scorching the West Coast, leaving behind a path of death and destruction.
Inches of rain this morning.
The waters keep rising, according to the National Weather Service.
Our very success now threatens our future. Today, our greatest challenge is to learn how to grow while sustaining what sustains us. Your understanding, your science, your work are the solution. You have the power to see patterns and relationships and show us how everything and everyone are connected. You have the power to transform how we produce and consume, build and maintain, unite and strengthen, heal and nurture. You can help us see that we can no longer live apart from nature, but must live as part of it. Today, geography matters more than ever. The geographic approach, your work, and the billions of maps you make are essential for creating a more sustainable future.
Good morning, everyone, and a special welcome to all who have joined us from here in Nepa, those in virtual land, those overseas, and our sector partners. This morning, you're here celebrating with us Nepa GIS Day 2021. And our national theme is Geospatial Technologies Navigating the New Normal. Nepa's sub-theme is Walkability and Placemaking. So we just want to say today, we're going to have some very interesting presentations for you, and we ask that you sit back, enjoy, and learn something new if you can. For those who already know, just cheer us on as we share with you some of the work that we're doing here at the National Environment and Planning Agency. We are now ready to start officially. So I will be asking, let me introduce myself. I'm sorry. I am Dion Chambers, and I'm the manager of the National Spatial Strategy Branch, which also houses the GIS unit in the National Environment and Planning Agency. We also have on program Ms. Francis Blair, who is the senior manager for the planning subdivision, and Francis Blair will be bringing us prayer. As soon as Francis Blair has done the prayer, we will then introduce the rest of the persons who are sitting here with me today. So at this time, I'm going to hand over to Francis Blair to take us through prayer. Ms. Blair, over to you. Ms. Blair, can you go ahead with the prayer?
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry about that. I was muted by the host.
We're not hearing.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good morning, Ms. Blair. We're hearing you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Morning, everyone. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day that you have given us. We thank you for those who are represented here with us this morning to celebrate in our presentation for GIS Day. Father, we thank you for the technology which you have given wisdom to professionals to produce, and really it's a way, Lord, that you have provided to show the beauty of what you have created on this earth. Our beautiful mountains, our rivers, our coastal areas. And Father, we thank you that we're able to use this technology to analyze our built and our natural environment. Father, we thank you that you have provided this technology so that we can basically celebrate what you have provided us with. We thank you for everyone who is here to deliver a message. Father, we want to ask that you intervene in our day of celebration and help us to have a fruitful day. Father, thank you again, Lord, for providing for us. And we ask that you bless each and every one of us here. Thank you. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Ms. Blair for that prayer. And of course, we always welcome God's guidance in everything that we do. Next, we'll be having greetings from Mr. Leonard Francis. And Mr. Leonard Francis is the director of the Spatial Planning Division. And I'm going to ask Mr. Francis to go ahead with his greetings at this time. Let
me wish you a pleasant good morning, Madam Chairperson, our guest speaker, Mr. Joseph J. Hersky, Ms. Francis Blair, Senior Manager, other presenters. Let me wish you a very pleasant good morning. On behalf of our CEO and Government Town Planner, Mr. Peter Knight, the management of Nepa, and the staff of Nepa, let me wish you a very beautiful and wonderful event. Our theme for today, the national theme, Geospatial Technologies, Navigating the New Normal, and the sub-theme, Walkability and Placemaking, are very perfect for the themes. And why do I say this? With COVID and with the other happenings around the world, we have what I would say a very wonderful and great opportunities to create and navigate a new normal. And as we move ahead in Jamaica in creating walkable and spaces in which we can work, play, recreate, GIS will be the most important tool to let this happen. I can imagine a scenario where GIS technology will be used to process applications within Nepa with minimum human intervention. I can imagine a scenario in which GIS technology will be used in the new scenario to actually help us in creating what we call over smart urban nodes, and we're starting with halfway 3. Sorry. As we move ahead in this GIS day, the topics that I'm seeing are very interesting, and I will guarantee you with the presenters that I see line up there, I can guarantee you it'll be very exciting. Thank you very much. Thank you, the team who has let this event happen, and I will remain right here, riveted to my seat to actually learn and to participate in the event. Thank you very much. Thank you, all the best.
And I'm sure it could not be said in a better way. I just want to extend a special welcome to Dr. Joseph Hersky, who has joined us from overseas. And Dr. Hersky is the Esri Education Manager. And I just want to say we're heartened to know that you have taken the time out to be with us here today, and we sincerely appreciate it. So on behalf of the CEO, the Director of the Spatial Planning Division, and the Nepa family, we just want to say thank you so much for being here, and we sincerely appreciate your presence.
Oh, many thanks, folks. Looking forward to speaking with you in a bit, and I salute you all. I wish you a happy GIS Day.
Yes, thank you. To do the official introduction, however, of our keynote speaker is Miss Olivia Anderson, and Olivia is the manager of the Public Education and Corporate Communication branch of the National Environment and Planning Agency. So I'm just going to ask you, Olivia, to go ahead.
Hi, pleasant good morning, everyone. Happy GIS Day today and in advance and for the rest of the week. I am very pleased today to be here introducing our guest speaker for today, Joseph. And when I looked at Joseph's profile, he actually has a story map that talks about his work. So I'm encouraging everyone on today to actually go on and to check him out. So in looking at Joseph's profile, one of the things that he said is that he believed that students need to have frequent and rich exposure to natural places while growing up and as adults. And I'm sure that is coming from David W.R. Earth in Mind, Education Environment, 1994. And so that is one of the things that I believe that underpins Joseph's work. He has co-authored 7 books, 5,000 videos, 1,000 blog essays, 1,000 curricular items, 10 podcasts, 75 articles, and 25 chapters. He's very accomplished, and he served in technology and education in 4 major sectors of society, including government, the nonprofit arena, academia, and the private sector. He has experience in creating curriculum involving geography, science, and other subject areas. He supported the implementation of GIS at all levels of society. He's nurtured educational partnerships among private industry professional societies, local, state, regional, tribal, and federal government agencies. He's taught over 40 workshops and has presented at 20 national and international conferences, including the National Council for Geographic Education. He's a researcher, of course, and he is a communicator. He is a geographer with a focus on GIS education, and he currently serves as the president of the National Council for Geographic Education and has given 2 TED Talks on the whys of where. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Joseph Hersky. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, Olivia, thank you so much for the kind words. I really appreciate it. I like your Nepa official looking uniform there. That's pretty spiffy. Anyway, greetings all. Thank you so much for having me. I've not been to Jamaica. I know it's embarrassing for a geographer. Maybe you all can invite me there someday. The closest I've been is Puerto Rico. So it's still a ways away from you all, but I salute you all. And I truly believe that geospatial technology is more than a technology, right, folks? It is transforming our world into a smarter, more resilient, more sustainable planet, and enabling our communities to make wiser and smarter decisions about natural hazards, health, and so much more that we could talk about today. But in the short time that I have, I just want you to keep that in mind. Oftentimes, people send me their maps. They say, hey, Joseph, I've got my data on the map. And I'll say, that's great. And? Why do I say, and? Because the map is not the final goal. The final goal is to understand something in a deeper, richer, more holistic way. Is it not? Right? We have a more noble goal out there. We're trying to make smarter decisions about our world and helping people to live more fruitful lives and safer lives. So remember that. We all want to learn more GIS, right? We're all very enthused about the technology. And again, I salute you all. It's very inspiring to see these stories and see your staff people out in the field and working in the office. And we all want to learn more about web mapping applications and spatial analysis and integrating GIS with virtual reality and augmented reality and artificial intelligence and machine learning and Jupyter notebooks and all the rest of the things that we have at our fingertips nowadays. But that is a means to a greater goal. The greater goal is to understand our world. So that being said, I've been asked by you gracious folks to speak specifically about education and careers in the short time that I have with you all. But hopefully you're seeing my screen right here. I've got a couple of deep questions. I know they're a bit deep for a Tuesday right before GIS Day, but the idea is, what do you want to see in society? I would argue that we all want to see a healthier, more sustainable, more resilient world, and GIS can help us get there. But remember, it's not the tools, it's the people. It's you all making positive difference at Nepa and other organizations that you represent here today. So I'm just grateful that you care, you have a heart for this, you really and truly want to make a difference. And as our opening speaker in the blessing said, we do have an amazing planet, you know, gifted by our creator. We've got, in my case, this is my homeland, Western Colorado, USA, canyons, buttes, mesas. And no matter what place you go to in the world, it's a fascinating place. And the more that we explore, right, the more we really appreciate our own planet and the diversity that we have, not just in terms of the biomes and the animals, the plants, the landforms, the climate, the vegetation, et cetera, but the people, right? We have an amazing array of people. And on a career note, more and more of those people are starting to look at GIS, not just our community of environmental geo planning types, right? Our core community that has been around since the 1960s, really. But people in additional fields are starting to look at GIS, say, I want to use a piece of that to make a smarter decision in business or in health or in data science or in engineering or in other fields, public safety, et cetera. So that's pretty exciting. The GIS community is growing in numbers, but also the diversity of backgrounds that people are having. And it's lending a lot of richness, I think, to our community. And that's exactly what we need, right, folks? Because in order to solve these complex problems that our world faces, we need people in different disciplines to weigh in on those problems, right? And we need people to look at it holistically. So a increasing diversity of disciplines and also that holistic view. So what do you want to see in society? I just ask you to keep thinking about that as we go through our day and going forward, keeping those higher goals in mind. Also, I'm in education, so I know we've got some students on here, we've got some faculty on here, and I know that you students are right in the thick of a very changing time, right, with COVID, et cetera. And educators, oh, how do I teach GIS or other subjects online or in a hybrid situation or combination face-to-face and online, et cetera. So education, like many structures in society, is undergoing a vast amount of change, but it will continue. Education will continue. It's going to morph and change and reinvent itself as it always has ever since educational institutions were around. But also geotechnologies will continue. There's never going to be a time where we're not going to be asking the whys of where. And indeed, I'm wearing my map tie, just in your honor today, folks. I've got my map tie on because I want you to keep thinking about the whys of where. It's not just where things are, right? Where is Colorado? Where is Jamaica, right? Where is the Atlantic Ocean? It's why things are where they are. What are the patterns? What are the relationships between different variables? What are the trends? And how can we plan for a better future? So those are a couple of thoughts I wanted to leave you. And thanks to Olivia's very kind words, you already know what I'm going to say next, that I encourage you, here's my own contact information. I would love to keep in touch with you. I don't intend for this to just be, okay, map on, continue on, but let's keep having a conversation. I would love to actually visit you all someday face to face. If we can make that happen, that would be a huge honor for me. But let's keep the conversation going even after today. So I'm on LinkedIn and various other channels. And this is my own background. I just share this not to bore you to tears, okay? I share this because I want you to think about two things. Number one, that with spatial thinking and holistic thinking, problem solving, critical thinking on your mind, with geotechnology tools around your tool belt, you can do two things, as I have in my career. You can change. You're not stuck in one organization for your whole career. I mean, Nepa is a wonderful organization that many of you are working for, but you're not confined to one organization or even one sector of society. So in my case, I'm very blessed to have been in 4 different sectors, as Olivia very kindly mentioned: nonprofit, academia, private industry at ESRI, and I teach, like many of you. I love teaching. And so I teach in different universities every semester. I also do a lot of professional development for primary and secondary school teachers, helping them to use GIS in history, math, geography, social studies, etc. So that's why I'm sharing this pathway of mine. And as Olivia also mentioned, I encourage you, you probably have a standard CV or resume like I have here, you know, where you've worked and people you've worked with and different experiences you've had, et cetera, right? You've all got something like this. But I also encourage you to make a story map of your CV or resume. And that's for several reasons. Number one, I encourage you to, at some point in your story map, do this kind of thing. Like, what did you do where? This, as I mentioned earlier, this is the closest I've actually been to you all. Where did you go? What did you do there in different places? So make sure you have at least one interactive map in your story map. We get a lot of story maps sent to us from people that have just videos and text and photographs. If you don't know what a story map is, start checking them out. They're very voluminous. They have a lot of numbers. There's about 2.5 million story maps in existence now. Sure, of a wide variety of quality, but people are using them for incredible diversity of applications. Again, from A to Z, agriculture to zoology, really, and literally everything in between. So make sure you've got at least one web map in your story map. And you can also include, of course, some interesting photographs of you in different places. This is my favorite globe in the whole world. This is the 1964 World's Fair globe in New York City. It is the world's heaviest globe. And I can't remember exactly how many tons it weighs, but it's quite massive. And so it kind of gives my geo heartstrings a tug. You know, it's pretty amazing to see that. I just about cried when I saw it face to face for the first time. But anyway, the point is, make a CV story map. Why? Number one, you can use that as your way of learning more about story maps and experimenting with new tools. So every time you update your own CV story map, you're experimenting with new tools. Number two, not everybody does this. So I think it helps you in your application to a future organization that you want to work for, helps you to get into that short stack of resumes, if you know what I mean. Get into the short list of applications that your future employer is considering, because not everybody does this. And number three, it's fun. It's a fun way for you to keep current with story maps. So every time you update it, you can incorporate some new story maps tools. So that's what I also encourage you to do. Another thing I wanted to encourage you in terms of careers is I have a Geo-Inspirations column in Directions magazine. This column features different people from all over the world and what they're doing with geotechnology. So if you need some inspiration, go to Geo-Inspirations at Directions magazine. And they range from mid-career types. There are people that are retired in here. There are people that are new to GIS, and they have an incredible diversity of backgrounds. So I encourage you to check out the Geo-Inspirations column. Another part of that Geo-Inspirations column is Geo-Inspirational Women. So what do these women do in geospatial technology careers? Again, wide variety of backgrounds, some in academia, some in nonprofits, some in private industry, some in government agencies. But I encourage you to check those out. Some of them are podcasts and some of them are straight text articles. Another thing that I wanted to encourage you to do is as follows. let's talk briefly about some trends and forces acting to bring us to a key pivotal time in GIS. One of those things is a list. Now, there are various lists on the web, right? The top 5 places to visit before you die. The top 5 places in Jamaica that we think are cool. This is what I used to do. I know there's some young people on the presentation here today. I would encourage you, by showing you some of the photographs and maps that I took that I created as a teenager, that you might like to do some things that nobody else likes to do. That's okay. Embrace those things. It may be something unique to you that no other friend of yours actually likes to do. So in my case, I like to make maps of made up places. I had railroad yards and ports and shipping and beaches and mountains and cities on my made up places. And I would label all the streets, etc. Nobody else, none of my friends liked to do that. I was the only one that liked to do that. You know, maybe future geographer in the works, you know what I mean? But the point is, embrace those things that were unique. My maps were so geeky and nerdy. I had these address ranges. Notice in the right-hand side of these maps, address ranges in my streets. What kid cares about address ranges? What kid even knows about address ranges? Again, embrace those kind of unique things that you like to do. And I truly believe, as I mentioned earlier, that geotechnologies are essential for learning and teaching. So I would encourage you educators to talk to people in the School of Business, talk to colleagues over in engineering, and encourage them, hey, are you doing anything with where, the where question, to look into geotechnologies? Now, oftentimes people think, well, I'm not a GIS person, Joseph. I don't have time to step into all of this. Well, fortunately, we've got web-based tools, right? We've got software as a service, ArcGIS Online, story maps, dashboards. Show them the JHU COVID dashboard and say, you've got the dashboard technology at your fingertips. You can create your own dashboard. More about that in a moment. But one of the things that I wanted to mention here is that there are so many lists of top 5, top 10 coolest bands of all time, places to visit in Jamaica, etc. But here, I would submit that these are 5 forces that are acting that are key as you students that are listening to this and you GIS professionals that are immersed in this, they're right in the middle of. Geo-awareness, the awareness of issues of climate, equity, natural hazards, water, energy, etc. Cool, thanks for sharing. That the awareness is at an all-time high, at least in my career. I've never seen people as aware of all of these issues and why they actually all matter. Now, they don't always connect it to geotechnologies and spatial analysis. So that's your role. Connect that rising interest and awareness to the fact that there's a field called geoscience, GI science. And then enablement. People are enabled to use dashboards, infographics, web maps, even if it's just to navigate their way across campus or to another town or to their grandmother's house, right? People are enabled in some ways to use some of the outputs that you all are creating through GIS. And then geotechnologies themselves, having advanced to this cloud-enabled system that we have at our fingertips, having the data sets in ArcGIS Hub and other open data portals is a huge leap forward, right? In the past, it was very difficult for you and I to share data. It's too clunky. We can't fit it onto a disk of various kinds. It was just very difficult to share. And we need to be sharing models, data, output, communication, like story maps and other ways, because people need to hear why this all matters and how they can get involved. So GIS has evolved from this desktop-only system to a system of engagement where people are involved with looking at, okay, here's invasive weeds in my community. Here's a dangerous intersection in my community. Here is a broken set of pavement or a sidewalk in my community, et cetera. And submitting that via these web mapping enabled portals in a citizen science mode to their local government, for example, and having the government saying, oh, okay, I see where the citizens are concerned. Let's respond to that. So accountability in government is a big part of GIS going forward. And it's great that you've got music in the cloud. It's great that you've got your documents in the cloud if you want to collaborate with a colleague on a paper, right? Dropbox, box.com, et cetera, right? Yeah, citizen science, exactly. So citizen science has emerged as my 4th block on this slide. And this slide, by the way, is a story map, right? I'm showing this whole thing as a story map. So I'm going to put this in the chat box because I want you to immerse in the many things that I've got in here that I don't have time today to actually discuss, but I put more things in here than we'll be able to discuss today. So I just encourage you to look at some of the World Economic Forum and other data that I've got in here in terms of careers and going forward. And finally, storytelling with maps. Maps have long been used to tell stories, right? A rich amount of data, a vast amount of data in a short amount of space. And same thing here with story maps and some of the other ways, web mapping applications that we've got at our fingertips. We can tell a lot of information in a short amount of space. Now, sure, I still use Prezi and PowerPoint and other ways of communicating. And as Olivia very kindly mentioned, I've got 5,000 videos on my video channel alone. So I'm very passionate about this, but story maps are an excellent way of telling a story that is spatial in nature. And that's, again, opening up geospatial and its message to why it all matters to a greater audience than ever before. So those are 5 forces that I just wanted you to think about as you go forward. Now, more specifically, in the last closing moments that I have with you all, I've got a couple of career notes that I wanted to share with you. First of all, as just building on what I was talking about earlier, I think I've hoped my statements earlier and the statements that will follow me lay a firm case for why GIS matters in our world and in our communities. It is no longer just this sort of niche technology that, oh, you need some maps, you need some geospatial data, go down the hall and see those people. They're on the right side of the hallway. They're a little bit nerdy, they're a little geeky, they love maps. Go see them if you need some data. Well, it's still sort of that way in organizations, but more and more people in organizations are starting to be empowered a little bit with using GIS. So I'm working with, for example, university schools of business. They don't need to know everything about GIS, but they're teaching supply chain or risk assessment or optimal site location. And they're all about location, location, location. So if I come in there with something like Business Analyst Web from Esri, a tool where they can easily make choropleth maps, infographics, drive times, and create compelling web mapping applications from that data, then that's a piece of the geospatial cloud that they will actually use to teach with, and students will learn from that. So again, it's using the most appropriate tools for the job, whether it's in civil engineering or health or business or data science or other fields. So GIS, I think, again, wrapping up my statement from earlier, is helping people to be change agents. You probably recognize Jane Goodall here. She's spoken at our Esri conference several times in the past. It's just a joy to have her because she really gets it. She really understands the whole idea of, why the where matters. And also, as I'm hoping to make a case here, that you're gaining marketable skills when you're learning GIS and when you're using GIS in education and beyond. It's not just the buffering and the overlay and the geocoding, right? It's bigger skills, more noble skills even than that. It's critical thinking, it's spatial thinking, it's holistic thinking, it's thinking about systems of systems, the hydrosphere, the atmosphere, the lithosphere, the anthrosphere, the human sphere, the cryosphere, the ice sphere, etc. And you're also thinking about cycles, the hydrologic cycle, the carbon cycle. So you're thinking about things in a holistic, connected sense, which you all are very keen on doing already, being an island community, right? You're very sensitive to the interaction between all of these systems, I think more than the general population that's in some big, humongous continent like me here in the middle of North America. So you're already very sensitive to this, and we want to encourage other people to think about the interconnectedness of our world. And finally, practically, it can help you get a job. If you've got some geotechnology skills in spatial thinking and critical thinking on your tool belt, you're going to be incredibly marketable and able to, hey, do you know how to make a web mapping application? We need someone that knows how to do that. Please come work for us. So there are more and more positions. These are just a few of the many kinds of skills required in these kinds of things. But I think that the bottom line is embrace the web. Understand how these web maps work. If it requires you to get a little bit into the coding using Jupyter Notebooks or Python or JavaScript, you don't have to be a full-time programmer. I'm in education. I'm not a full-time programmer. I know enough about it to be able to make some expressions when I want to. And I know how these web maps are created with the code behind the scenes, but we've got developer.arcgis.com, for example, where you can sort of dip a few toes into the waters, if you know what I mean, for some of these skill building exercises. And you can scan some GIS job positions. But I think one of the things that stands out to me is be a good communicator. Be a good communicator, okay? So think about that. Also, I believe being curious about the world is the most important thing of all. Ask good questions. I encourage you students listening to this, ask good questions. Ask good questions that even your professors aren't even asking you, or your teachers if you're in a school. If you're in the workplace, ask questions that your employer, your boss, your supervisor, el jefe, okay, whoever is not even asking you. Those are the kinds of employees that will be really valuable in the workplace, that they can ask questions and understand how to use data. Now, I have a spatial reserves data blog in here that I'm going to share. I don't have time to show it, but I'm going to put it in the chat box here. But it's all about three things. How can I find data, spatial data for my project? How do I know if I can trust that data? Because there's so much data out there. How do I know if I can trust it? And societal issues around data, ethics, copyright, location privacy, etc. So that spatial reserves data blog comes out every 2 weeks, came from a book that I wrote with a colleague, and I'm hoping that it provides some very timely and relevant information for you all. So those are I think, the key skills. Context and content. Where is it, but also why is it, where its location? And it's for today and tomorrow. We're never going to get to a place where GIS is not relevant to our society, right? And with agriculture to zoology and everything in between. This is Eastern Colorado, by the way, east of me. You don't really think about this being Colorado. You probably think of, mountains, ski areas, et cetera. And sure, the western 2/3 of the state is that way. But the eastern third is the Great Plains. So we're at the intersection of two major biomes, which of course gives my geographic heart, does it good. Anyway, the point is, GIS is always going to be relevant in many, many fields going forward in our 21st century world. There's never going to be a time where we're going to have all these problems solved and we're not going to be confronted. Change is the norm on the planet Earth, right? We've got natural changes and we've got human influenced changes, okay? So the point is, embrace that background, think about different places where you could work and could make a contribution. Look at the possible ways that you can increase your skills going forward. I've got a couple of resources here that I'm going to share. For example, ArcGIS Online, I think is the best way to start with GIS, easy to use. You've got the data at your fingertips from the Living Atlas of the World. No software required, right? Works on any device and so on. You've got 8,500 layers in the Living Atlas of the World alone on energy, water, hazards, population change, et cetera. And you've got ESRI MOOCs, massive open online courses, podcasts, learning resources, lessons. For those of you in education that are instructors, we've got some lessons configured for teachers to use. And so no shortage of resources to get going. I hope that was helpful. I know that was very brief, but I encourage you, we need your skills and abilities. We need you folks to keep on, don't get dismayed by all of the serious problems on our planet. We've got good people, you all, good data at our fingertips, some good tools to use, and a good vision for where we need to take this. So I would encourage you all to press on, map on, and don't give up. We will emerge through all of these crises in a better way. Any questions for me, comments? Motioning to your organizer saying, that was the most boring presentation ever. We never want to have Joseph back. Hopefully not. Hopefully you're saying, oh, there were some nuggets there that I actually might be able to take and use. I'm going to look and see if I can find any remarks in the chat. Oh, Dane, hey, what's happening? Oh, thanks, Travis. Much appreciated. Curious if anybody on the call here has ever been to Colorado. I expressed my thoughts earlier about I'd really love to see you all in your natural habitat down there. But I'm wondering if any of you have been up my way. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, but before I do, I'm going to actually go back to my contact information one more time so you know how to get a hold of me, and a couple of resources on there. So I'll just leave this up for a moment, but I don't want to intrude on the next speaker's time. So I know time's always sensitive on these conferences. So again, it's a huge honor to be with you all. I wish you all the best. Be spatial, and all best wishes for your continued success there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hersky. I wish we were in another space where you could actually get up and give you a standing ovation and also give you that big round of applause. But just know that from where we sit, we are applauding you in virtual land. Of course, it's really important for us to just look at some of the things you have said to us. But what stands out to me, I have to say, you must come to Jamaica. You need to come to Jamaica. This is where it's at. We have lovely music. We have lovely spaces, green spaces. And I'd say the top 5 places to visit, I'll give you 3. Portland, I have to put that in. That's where my mother is from, but it's a beautiful parish. Blue Mountain, we have a protected area there. Blue Mountain and Blue Mountain and Jonquil Mountain National Park. It's recognized by UNESCO. So we would really love for you to visit there. And you have to come to Lover's Leap. Not to leap, but just to come and take a look at the grandeur and the beauty. So it's really interesting that you were here to share with us today. And what really magnifies everything about GIS is that it can underpin just about any profession, and it can get you a job. That is so good. I am definitely going to be making a story map of my CV because I have a story to tell. So thank you for that. If you don't mind, I'd like for you to stay on with us for, I'm not sure how long you can stay on, but I would like to invite persons to ask some questions. So for those who are on the platform with us, you can share your questions in the chat and we can ask or share them with Dr. Hersky if he doesn't see them. So I'll invite persons to just ask your questions. We have 5 minutes for questions, so you can go ahead and ask your questions at this time. Thank you. So anyone is going to ask a question, you can place it in the chat or you can raise your hand and we can open the mic and allow you to speak.
Well, hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Right, this is not a question, but it's more of a comment. I really do like the concept of a story map on a resume. I never really thought of that before because you apply for a job that's GIS centric or geospatial technology centric. It only makes sense that you'd probably use that to showcase your skills. So on my resume, for example, I have like my LinkedIn account there. So having like a link to a story map kind of adds a little bit of extra pizzazz, as you said. So thank you for that.
Or comments. We also welcome comments. Okay, the floor is open, 5 minutes. Okay, so while we wait on any further questions or comments. So while we wait, I just want to share with you that Dr. Hersky spoke about broken pavements. And I can say that we have other partners here in Jamaica who are part of what we call Land Information Council of Jamaica. We're a big GIS family in Jamaica. We're actually trying to build out that family. And so we share information. Nepa being a regulatory entity, what we tend to do from time to time, we share this kind of information with our sector partners. And what I would love, Dr. Hersky, I'm not sure if you can accommodate us, but we would love to know, if you have any information you can share with us in terms of how we can do streetscapes from time to time. We do it here. It is something that we're basically just launching as an official means of doing some of our land use management activities and to study our land uses. So I'd like to know if you can share some platforms or some links where we could actually go on, and it will help persons to understand and appreciate streetscapes or how we can represent some of our landscape in a 3D form, simple ways in which persons can just go on and learn how to do it simply, how you can practice. For some of the students, it would be nice if we could take it in even at our primary school level and our high school level, just to show them simply how you can create some of these platforms, or how you can basically cast your information in a very simple way. So we would also welcome some of that, because we do interact with our students. Nepa has a big group of students that our public education and corporate communication group engage annually, especially those students who are about to take the major exams at the end of their 5 years. So we would love to get some of those links that we could share with them. And we want to believe that you're open to us inviting you again to events such as this, or even just to speak to students in law school.
Well, two brief things, and then I'll let the other speakers on, but thanks for the kind words. I have put into the chat box a link to my walkability survey. This is a pretty simple example, but it's powerful and exactly what you're saying. I've got a survey 123, and it's crowdsourced, so I don't have any points on there for Jamaica yet. So if you take this survey and say, hey, this place is walkable or this place is not walkable, we'd have some points on there. But it's an illustration of the combination of 4 different pieces of the web GIS platform. So it's a survey 123 about walkability. And then I have a web map that receives the input from the survey. And then I have a dashboard that I created to house the results of the survey, and with a couple of pie charts and a gauge and so on, and a legend, and then a story map that actually wraps all of those 3 elements together. So I think the 2 powerful messages is that A, it connects 4 different pieces of this web GIS platform that we all have access to, and then the second powerful message, I think, is that the creating the survey, the story map, the web map, and the dashboard took me, this is an education language, so forgive me, but 4 class periods, 4 hours to create the whole thing. So we're not talking days, weeks, months. In a very short amount of time, people could create a survey and the same kind of model on invasive weeds or broken pavement, right? Or water quality or weather or anything else in the community. So I hope that link I put in the chat box about that is helpful. Anyway, thanks again.
We'll definitely be looking on your information to see what we can also take from it, and how best it can assist us in carrying out some of our activities here. We sincerely appreciate you taking the time out to be here today. And I just want to say, well, I see here where one of our sector partners, Brian Austin, who works with the Urban Development Corporation, He's the director of, I think, the GIS unit there. He's saying thank you very much for information. It was a fun presentation. And he wants you to, he's asking if you could expound on how critical it is for the vision component of, I'm not seeing so well, and I have on glasses. Can you imagine that? I'm not sure if you can see it in the chat.
I did see that. Thank you, my friend. Much appreciated. If you mean by vision, keeping in mind the greater goals of GIS and not just to make maps or do even spatial analysis, but to create these more resilient, sustainable communities that we all are seeking, then I think it's very important. You know, a lot of people in GIS, you know, they're day-to-day creating parcels, right? Or they're mapping fire hydrants, or they're mapping the pavement condition, and they've got field crews out there checking in and checking out water main data or pipes or whatever it is. And so it's easy to lose sight of the grander goal. But even those people, and we need those people that are in the sort of the trenches, right? Working day to day, creating the geodatabases and so on, and maintaining all of those systems. We need those people. Otherwise, we have no data to analyze, right? We have no data to work with. So those data creation people are extremely important to the entire community. So I especially want to encourage those people that, you know, may have seen that day to day you're creating 1,000 more parcels, you're creating 1,000 more pipelines or whatever it is, but your role is still extremely important to the overall effort. So don't lose sight of the big vision. You are still contributing to increased geoliteracy for all, and part of the users of your data are going to be students at the primary, secondary, university level that will be empowered to start thinking critically and spatially using GIS, and then they'll take those skills into the workplace. So I salute you all.
Okay, we actually have the questions running in now. We have another question from Domenio, and he's asking, are you aware of any source for geospatial data that we that are open source and free for us to utilize?
Yeah, so good question. Part of the spatial reserves data blog of mine is to connect people with data. And if you do a search on top 10 or top 7, I have a review of what I consider to be the top 10 satellite image sources, the top 10 open geospatial data portals. And I'm pretty critical of these. If they don't work very well, I don't say in my data blog, hey, this is the greatest thing ever. From a user perspective, and maybe it's because of my past work in these science and mapping agencies actually creating data, I know how it is. You create a data portal and then, oops, someone's got to maintain it every year. And the organization has to fund someone to maintain it. So consequently, a lot of these data portals are set up and then they languish. And it's very difficult for the data user to actually get data from them. Fortunately, with ArcGIS Hub, that's starting to change, and with other technologies where you can stream the data and download it in a variety of formats. So I think it's changing for the better. But if you do a search on top, TOP, in the Spatial Reserves data blog, you'll get my listing of and review of these data portals. Not just that these data portals exist, but how useful are they? What can you do with them? And so on. So I hope that's helpful. I would just also say, start with the Living Atlas of the World. Start with the Living Atlas of the World because it's connected to this ArcGIS technology. So most of the layers, maps, apps are directly feedable into ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Pro, ArcMap, etc. So that's sort of my go-to starting point these days for searching for data. It may not be in the Living Atlas of the World, which is a subset of ArcGIS Online, but I always start there. And then I go to hub sites and some of my top 10, top 7 listings. I hope that's helpful.
Okay, thank you so much, Domenio. I hope that helped, and we can also make additional contact, further contact with Dr. Hersky. So that can be a follow-up for us. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Hersky. Again, we can't thank you enough. And the promise we have for to show gratitude is that when you come to Jamaica, you definitely have to come to Nepa and we'll take you out. So over to you, please come so we can take you out to have a good time. to the beach. Thank you. Okay, thank you all for your time so far. It has indeed been a pleasure to be hosting all today for Nepa's GIS Day. Today is our webinar. We're celebrating one day ahead of the official day. The official day is the 17th of November, 2021. But we know a lot will be going on and we want to get special attention. And so we decided to have it today. So I just want to thank you all for taking your time out to be here. And while you're on, you can still continue to invite others to come on. And in the chat, you can basically put hashtag Nepa GIS Day webinar. Thank you so much. Okay. As I mentioned before, it was really nice there, the whole idea of being able to pick up your broken pavements, using GIS, different portals or different platforms to be able to allow for accountability to ensure that those who are responsible to provide that space for us to use so that we can have walkable spaces, we can have what we consider to be awesome placemaking where persons can feel really good to go out there and to try and live what we consider to be our Vision 2030. Words of a place to work, play, do business, raise families. But of course, if you can go out there and be able to walk around, if you can go outside and feel good to be in a space that is considered to be good placemaking, you can have proper pavements to walk on, you can have nice parks to be a part of, you can walk around and feel safe. You don't have to think that you're gonna buck your feet when you're walking around, or like for me here in Crossroads, I think I'm gonna lose a shoes tip. You can feel good to walk around. So that is a theme that we have been using from last Monday when we had World Town Planning Day and GIS Day. We're still singing that song, creating spaces where you can have walkability. At this time, I'm going to hand over to our next presenter. His name is Mr. Aaron Munsell Akidonar, and he is the GIS coordinator here at the National Environment and Planning Agency. We commonly call him Selly. That's his special name because a lot of persons cannot pronounce Aaron Munsell. So at this time, I'm going to hand over to Selly, and he's going to take you through a very interesting presentation. Please do not leave your seats. Please enjoy this presentation and learn something, and you can come to us and we share much, much more. So over to you, Selly.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dion. And good morning, colleagues, and happy GIS Day. Thank you very much, Dr. Hersky, for honoring our invitation. And personally, I've been blessed by your presentation. Today, I am going to be presenting on a topic titled Walkability and Placemaking in Portmore St. Catherine. I'm going to share my screen. So talking about walkability, I have an introduction for us. Just like what Dr. Hersky said, GIS is used to solve problems. And one of the problems that we are dealing with currently is climate change. Now, we know that there was a conference that was just concluded in Glasgow, that is in the United Kingdom, and it is called COP26. But coming out from that COP26, cars, cities, and countries decided that they were going to cut emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, to 45%. That is, they are going to take it to 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial level. Now, research has shown that the cost in or streets in urban centers are actually car-centric. What do I mean by car-centric? They are created to support just cars alone. Now, this makes it difficult for people to use the most basic form of transport, which is walking, bicycling, and other human-powered modes of, moving around from one place to another, or rather to stay socially connected. So what we try to do is to look at the infrastructure that we currently have and how it can support walkability. And we took Portmore St. Catherine. I think my map is not, I have a master plan here, but I think I'm having some internet problems. I have a master plan here for Portmore St. Catherine, which I wanted you to see. Brayton Parkway is where, to some of us who may have taken the JUTC bus, is where we call the 20 route in Portmore. And when you look at Portmore master plan, that corridor is actually a commercial and an industrial, light industry corridor. So a lot of businesses are happening there. And so we decided to look at how supportive are the infrastructure in those areas to support walkability. And as you know, Brayton Hills also supports walkability. If you go there on weekends, there's a hill in Portmore. Sometimes people come from overseas, to walk on that hill. So that entire corridor, we did a 3D model of that area to show you how the current infrastructure is and what our proposals are in order to make walkability an experience in Portmore St. Catherine. Now, the main research question that this actually answered was, what is the existing condition of the Brayton Parkway streetscape, and can it support placemaking and walkability? Our research objective really was to show the advanced tools and application available for planning and environmental management, and also assess the existing streetscape in the study area. And then we went further to create a GIS-based 3D model using Esri City Engine to communicate how this proposed streetscape of the study area should look like. Now, I know we have a lot of professionals here. Geodesign using GIS, creates a lot of experience in terms of, moving away from just maps, because sometimes stakeholders like citizens and community members don't really want to see those maps that we draw. They cannot understand them. So putting these things in 3D will enable them to actually see these areas properly. I'm so sorry, I am not able to show my pictures, because I actually have the pictures on the PowerPoint, also on the story map presentation. My presentation is in story map, but I think I'm having some internet bandwidth problem here. But nevertheless, I'll just take you through and share the presentation with you, the story map presentation with you after the presentation itself. So let's look at Portmore, or let's look at St. Catherine, where Portmore is located. Now, if you look at starting 2011 population census, you will discover that Portmore have the second largest population, which is 516,218 persons live in the entire St. Catherine. But a chunk of that population, about 103,000 people, live in Portmore, St. Catherine. So you realize that there are a lot of activities happening, in Portmore. But to take this further, urban development in the Brayton Parkway and its environs, over the past 6 years has been accelerating, or has been moving at a geometric progression. You have lots and lots of businesses being, located in the Breton Parkway. Examples I just gave, I brought out some examples to show you, like the IBEX BPO have about 3 buildings, in that Breton Parkway. Hilo Supermarket is located on the Breton Parkway. A Total gas station with its first automatic car wash in Jamaica is located on the Breton Parkway. The Singer Company is located on the Breton Parkway. You have a Scotia Bank there. You have a First Global Bank. You have the well-known Sovereign Village with Popeyes, Monarch Pharmacy, Domino's, Wendy's, Subway, and the Progressive Market. You have the Department of Inland Revenue, which we call the tax office. We have the proposed Portmore Price Mart is also located in this corridor, which is the Breton Parkway. Then you have the Surgical Bank, the Island Grill, you have the First Caribbean Bank, you have the Superlative Auto, you have the 100-man police station, Portmore Municipal Corporation, and presently they have a new building close to the 100-man police station. And then you have the Sunshine Outlet and Sunshine Palace Cinema. Now, why I had to bring all of this into this presentation is actually to let you see what is going to happen, when all of this comes. Some are already fully operational, while others are still being developed. So what we find is that a lot of problems in terms of traffic, congestion, and other types of problems will be happening in that place. So what we went further to do was to look at the streetscape and how it can enable walkability. Because when we talk about placemaking, we are talking about most of these places that I've just mentioned. How can we move from our residencies, right, without taking without driving our cars to most of these places that we currently have located here? That's really the principles of walkability. How can I move from one place to another? Are the infrastructures in those places, are they convenient for me to walk? So when we talk about pedestrians, we are not only talking about people who walk on their foot, we're also talking about people who use assistive devices, human-powered devices such as bicycles, such as wheelchairs to move from one place to another. So as it is now in that Breton Parkway, it is not really convenient, for persons to move from their houses to the places that are located in those malls or those plazas that we are seeing. So during the course of gathering data for this survey, we realized that we have traffic congestion. There are no curbsides, there are no curbsides for persons to work. The roads are not user-friendly. Poles are protruding, into walkways. There is heavy sunshine intensity, heat in Portmore. You find that taxis, always, they don't have places to park. So they park along the road to pick up passengers and thereby causing traffic congestion. You have illegal vendors on that route. And more persons are bending on that route. There are no adequate signage or rules on the road, no uniform setbacks. There are no ramps for the physically challenged. These are some of the problems. So I have some pictures here. This is how the road looks. This is how the road looks like with your poles protruding to the road. And this actually does not support walkability. This is the Breton Hill. This is the existing walkability in the Breton Hill. Persons go there, they walk uphill and so on and so forth. So creating the 3D model, we created this in City Engine, so where we want to see, because we are moving towards mass transit, how do we move people en masse instead of persons taking their individual cars to reduce the rate of, greenhouse gas emission. I want to ask everyone in the room today, have you ever taken time to calculate your carbon footprint? We all work for an environmental agency. That's the National Environment and Planning Agency. Is it business as usual for each and every one of us? So these are some of the strategies we are promoting in order for us to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So our roads should have curbsides where persons can walk on those roads with street furniture. What do we mean by street furniture? I have a list of street furniture here. So we have sidewalks and curbs. We have street corners. We have trees and landscape of trees. So if you're looking at my screen, we created a streetscape, using Esri City Engine. This was actually superimposed onto the existing road in Portmore, so that we have bicycle lanes, we have street lighting, we have benches, we have garbage cans, garbage bins along the road, and we have less cars on our roads. We have more buses, trams, and we reduce, persons driving their private vehicles. I know this is overambitious, but it is where the world is moving towards. So if you look at it, this is a 3D view. This is a streetscape view from the tax office at Brayton Parkway. So if you are used to this area and you know where the tax office is, the tax office is very close to the new Sunshine Mall. And when you look at the crane that you are seeing, that is actually the construction site where the BPO is. That is IBEX in Portmore. And then when we move, this is the streetscape. So you have bicycle lanes, you have bus lanes, and then you have trees, and then you have the curbs. So right now, since Portmore is very, very hot, when we have trees, persons can walk on their foot for at least 5 kilometers. When you walk, you have benches on the curbsides where you can sit down, and then you can continue your journey. So you can move to and fro because you have a lot of residences along this, surrounding this place that I just mentioned, the Brayton Parkway. You have the Silverstone housing scheme there. You have the country club. You have even the Caribbean estate. You have the Palms of Portmore and other residences. So when we develop this area, build the infrastructure in order to enhance walkability, it will be something that will be very nice for all of us. Now, this is a JUTC bus, picking up passengers. I'm sorry that I didn't use much Black people since this is Jamaica, but the scripts, because we use Python scripts to do some of these things. So as we go along, as we input, we start to write indigenous scripts in Jamaica. That's where we are going, according to my director. This is a map of the placemaking. These are some of the places. I want you to pay a visit to Portmore, and you will be surprised at what you will see. You have Italian restaurants here, and so many other, nice places that you can visit. You don't need to go to the United States or to England. It's right here in Jamaica. So this is placemaking. Once we build our infrastructure, we are able to move around, and that will be a nice experience. Now, this is a 3D view of Portmore. This is the business hub. You have IBEX over there, and then you have the Sovereign Village. You have Portmore Pines further down. This is Portmore Pines Plaza. And this is the JUTC depot in Portmore. And then one of the proposals that, if you look at the Portmore master plan, that entire Brayton Parkway have a rail reserve. So we are saying that the way to go is for us to have these rail trams. This is actually above the head in rail trams. When you go to places like China, they have things like this where you have supersonic trains, or trams, but they are elevated. I just pray that I'm able to show you the actual 3D so that you will see what we are talking about. So we have electric power trams and trains, in Portmore. We already have lands in the master plan allocated for things like this. All we need to do is to go for it. Now we are proposing parks and green areas in Portmore. This is an example of a park. This park that we created is actually behind the land behind 100-man police station and the proposed PriceMart building. This is walkability and placemaking. This is actually ecological placemaking. You can see persons in the park. Because of COVID, we actually have boxes created where you can social distance inside the park. Now, so many of us will be saying, when will that happen in Jamaica? So we also proposed having security and safety, where our police, they are empowered with helicopters to patrol, more vehicles to patrol in Portmore. And then we still have more green spaces and recreational areas. Now, this is the Breton Hill. As it currently stands, I just showed you a picture of the Breton Hill. We are proposing that, hilltop cycling should be encouraged. That can attract tourists and can be more money for the country. Where we have bicycle lanes, we have the trees planted along that lane so that persons can have a great experience. I'm just going to show you the Breton Hill. This is the Breton Hill in Portmore, which is actually the highest area along that place. Another thing we are proposing is for there to be, even in the park, we have a kids area where our kids can go and play and have a nice experience in our community. Now, this is another green space. We have emergency services. So you see an ambulance there, you see a police vehicle, and you see 2 fire trucks. So these are things that are possible using, the tools that we get from ESRI. And this is the way to go in planning. Now, there's a web scene here, which would have actually shown us the 3D web scene, right? But I can share this link with every one of us, but I am not sure that the internet will be able to play the web scene, but I'm going to try. It appears the internet cannot support the web scene. All right, I'm still trying. But if it doesn't work, I'm going to send it. Just take your time to look at it. Now I have some recommendations here. Or what I could do, I could play the 3D on my machine. When I finish, I would still love to play the 3D so that everyone can see Portmore and all the streetscape and furniture that we want there. So many persons who are in the room, some will say this is over ambitious, but for such a high level infrastructural upgrade will require a lot of finance. Now this will require international partnership, private-public partnership, including maintenance agreement plans. It is therefore recommended, so I'm making these recommendations for us to seek grants from private entities to develop transport infrastructure, partnership between the public and private sector. A lot of private sectors, as a part of their corporate social responsibility, have a lot of money given away. So those money can be used to build infrastructure. We can encourage also grassroots partnership. We can also have special areas where citizens with good money can come and develop such infrastructure. And then above all, there is the Green Climate Fund, which is available, especially for small island developing states. We can, tap into this fund because the transport sector contributes a significant share of the global CO2 emission. And so it is an area where the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change have really focused on. So building transport infrastructure, because what we are working towards is net zero emission, where we reduce the carbon footprint. Some people will say in this room, how much carbon is Jamaica generating? But I want to tell you that one of the principles of international law is common but differentiated responsibility. You do your part, I do my part, it contributes to the global common. So this is my presentation, and I am now available to take questions. Thank you. So if you have questions, you can ask. All right, I'm going to put this story map in the chat so that
Okay, sorry about that, but thank you so much, Aaron Munsell, for your presentation. It was indeed an interesting one. And for those who are here inside of Nepa, you know that he's here and he's always willing and available to assist you, to teach you, or to collaborate with our sector partners, or to just provide general guidance on achieving some of your tasks using the GIS systems or the platforms to ensure that you have efficiency in your deliveries. At this time, the floor is open to questions. And I see a question from Dominio. And I think he's asking, how is the level of collaboration with our external agencies, such as the JDF, JCF, and the UDC? Maybe I'll hand over to Sally to answer that question, but I can say that we definitely partner a lot with the UDC. There are times when we actually do more sharing of information, and we have had Mr. Austin, I may have raised his name earlier, who is the head of the GIS department at the UDC. We have asked him for support in terms of guiding us on different matters. And in terms of working, in terms of meeting some of the mandates at NEPA, we work closely with the UDC. We share information, we share shape files, and they also share information with us. I'm not sure if that answers the question in its totality, but I'm going to hand to Aaron Munsell to answer the question a little more. I do think, though, that we can probably do a little bit more with the JDF and the JCF, but we're getting there. We are getting there. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. There is indeed, I think, Ms. Dion, I think Mr. Francis should be the one to answer this question in terms of collaboration. When we talk about urban planning with the JDF, with the police and other partners. Mr. Francis, please, can you say something about this?
So, Director Francis, we may be placing you on the spot, but we know that you can answer this question. So, Mr. Francis, over to you. You can open your mic and you can Okay. We're not hearing from Mr. Francis at time. So I will just say that in terms of collaboration, Damenio, you are a part of the Nepa family. And so we can probably have further discussions in terms of some creative ways in which we can engage the JDF. But what I can say is the Coast Guards out at Port Royal, just recently, they have asked us to provide them some information, some shapefile information. They want information on our territorial waters, and they also want our land use information. And that information, they are going to be using it because they're also trying to develop their GIS units. So they're going to be using that information to analyze and to also create some critical data sets that they can share with us and we can have further dialogue. So there's always room for more engagement or partnership, and we definitely can have that discussion internally. Are there any more questions from the chat? Okay, I see where Mrs. Brown, Margaret Brown, one of our colleagues, she's saying that, she's asking, do we have the reservation on the roads in Portmore to facilitate recommendation, example, bike lanes? Yes, I would say I can hand over to Aaron Mansell, but as part of the development order, a part of that process is to collect this kind of information. And we have a provisional development order for Portmore. And in that, we have information in terms of the reservation. We also have the reservation information on our database system that we can use to assist us in preparing that kind of 3D layout or streetscape to share with the municipal council. We have not gone to them with this information as yet because it is still it's still work in progress, but we are definitely looking at it. We're also looking at the climate change park that is in Portmore that is to be developed. And we're looking at other areas within Portmore where we can use the platform to create the 3D information for them so they can see it and have an understanding or appreciation of what can be done or achieved. The next step, of course, would be for our implementers, that's our sector partners, to put in these types of systems as your bike lanes. We definitely have that, especially even in Kingston, even coming up for the halfway tree, the smart, let me say that, smart halfway tree master plan. Bike lanes is a big part of it. And I want persons to understand and appreciate as well for all the road improvements that you have seen so far within Barbican, within Constant Spring, just generally along the Mandela. One of the things that we have always put forward in our recommendations to the implementing partners is that we want bike lanes or bicycle lanes. Because I've always said, if I could have that space where I could ride to work, I would park my vehicle and ride to work, because that alone can reduce our footprint in a tremendous way. So yes, we're promoting bike lanes, bicycle lanes, and proper walkable spaces for our pedestrians. Okay, so do we have any more questions? Mr. Aramancel is just taking a minute while we field the questions to go and launch a video from his desk. We're actually in office, so that it can give you an idea of what some of the things that we're doing in terms of the streetscape and other things in relation to GIS. I want to just ask a question in the meantime, and we also have our next presenter who is basically ready. But I want to ask a question, and I'm going to throw it out in the chat. And I would prefer that our team members from the SPD, I prefer if you don't answer, and our other friends in the Protected Areas branch or the Environmental Management and Conservation Division, who works closely with us in the GIS unit. I prefer if you don't answer. I'd like someone to tell me what type of data does GIS deal with? It's a very easy answer. You can type it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we'll open your mic and you can answer. The question, what type of data does GIS deal with? Okay, so I see an answer. I see Odane McCoy. Yes, you're correct, Odane. Did we have anyone else on YouTube who answered? Maybe not. So Odane, congratulations. We have a token for you. And I'd like you to put your information in the chat, your email or your contact number, and we'll definitely provide you with your token.
Thank you.
Okay, so here we're going to be having the live presentation from Mr. Akidanor. So you can just take a look at it quickly, and then we will move into our next presentation. Over to you, Sally.
So, certain questions that were being asked. This is the master plan for Portmore. So when you, and this is when I zoom in, right, you're going to see that there are some reservations, right? This is where the road can be expanded, and you have a reservation by the Jamaica Railway Corporation right here. This is the master plan, the Portmore master plan on the base map that you are seeing, right? So we have the area that we are talking about is this area. So you have the commercial and light industry, and then you have the railway reservation, right? So I'm just going to show you the key, the map key. So remember the places in light red, deep red. So this is the master plan. And then let me see if my video plays now. So this web scene viewer uses a lot of bandwidth. So I hope everyone is seeing my screen, and I sincerely hope it can work so that you can see. So I'm going to be sharing the web scene. You can always have access to it. And this is our study area. This is so you can see the reservation here. So we have the facilities. Well, while we take the next presentation, I think we should take the next presentation, and then I can just share the 3D scene is just like 9 minutes. So after the next presentation, I will be able to share it. Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Chambers, you are muted.
Rashid, please, Miss Chambers is muted.
She's still attacking her.
We are now going to be taking Mr. Andre Reed, and Andre Reed is a member of the Environmental Management and Conservation Division, and he's here he is the coordinator for watersheds here at Nepa, and he recently completed a stint as the project manager for the Yalas and Hope project that closed recently at Nepa, where they had some successful activities or deliverables. But without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Andre to take us through the presentation. So over to you, Andre.
Thank you, Mrs. Chambers. Good morning, everyone. Definitely when Sally reached out and said that we're having a presentation centered around the theme walkability, and he would address issues such as obesity, I immediately felt he was calling shots towards me. In his presentation, he would have mentioned that having this walkable space in Hornmore would allow for 5K walking on a regular basis. And another point there, I was wondering if that's another shot. But definitely, there's no walkability without, in my humble opinion, without you having those green spaces in one regard. And also, there's a need for you to have water. Imagine walking 5K without water. So my presentation today will be looking at stuff that was accomplished under the Yalaso project. And we'll also kind of drill in a bit on how we leveraged Esri in terms of the various ARC extensions that are available, as well as the various add-ons in order for us to quantify the impact of our project in the wider watershed. So I'll go ahead now and share my screen. And you can just give me a confirmation as to whether or not you're seeing everything. All right. So my topic for today, we'll be looking at how land use changes impact sediment production within the Yalas and Hope Watershed Management Unit. And as you can rightly see, we'll be leveraging ArcGIS extensions. Dr. Hersky had mentioned earlier that for sure, if you have a map, it is a map, and we are going to demonstrate what the ant can be. That's one of the scenarios for the ant. All right. So there are some existing realities in the wider Yalas and Hope watershed. For sure, many of us will be aware of the fact that it's one of our more degraded watersheds. If you were to take a drive outside of the fresh air that you're seeing, you might see some realities such as barren landscapes. You might see some land slippages. You might even see evidence of fires in the wider watershed. I want to point your attention to the image at the bottom right of your screen, which shows the landscape just behind an intake. That's a NWC intake. You are familiar with the Yalas pipeline. So this point of reference here is actually one of those intakes from which water comes and is pumped into Kingston. But look at the landscape behind it. That barren hillside that is there trying to provide us with some useful water for us to be able to walk along those nice streetscapes that Sally has shown. So definitely the project was conceptualized with this in mind, the need to intervene. And yes, the broader objective would have been for us to look at the biodiversity, conservation and management of biodiversity, and provision of ecosystem services in the Yalas and Hope watershed. Those ecosystem services that we were most concerned with is the provision of water and the regulation of sedimentation. Now, far brighter minds than my own have shown through various research, both locally, looking at Barker and McGregor in 1988, where they did some work in the Yalas Valley, And overseas, we look at the work of Matano et al. And Borelli et al. That anthropogenic influences greatly cause sediment degradation. So if you are aware of the fact that it is us as humans that are up there causing the issues, what we're seeing in terms of low water production or high volumes of sediment, then it stands to reason that if you want to change that situation in the lower watershed, which is Kingston, you will have to do some amount of source intervention. The NWC over the years has been doing a lot of work, good work in terms of infrastructure upgrade, and on Nepa's side, through partnership, we're able to do some amount of source intervention. So I did a little rough estimate, and I'm almost certain that source intervention plus infrastructure upgrade will inevitably lead to water. But that is just my analysis of the situation. We're all scientists, so we have to do some amount of quantification. So yes, it was written into the project that at the end of the project, based on the activities that we're doing, we'll have to show that there's been a reduction in sedimentation within these watersheds. We would have gone up into the area, would have classified some regions, and we call those priority regions. So some of them would have been Upper Yala Subbasin, Green River Subbasin, Nigger River Subbasin, Fall River Subbasin, Jew River Subbasin, and Malm River Subbasin. We would have gone in and would have reached out to our farmers through the help of RADA. I would have taught them soil land management techniques. So for example, in the top right, you're seeing someone learning how to plant along a contour using an A-frame, and along the bottom section of the images, you will see some persons doing some ballasted waterways, we call it. Basically, we're trying to reduce the velocity of the water that is leaving the hillside, and in so doing, cause some of the sediment to drop, as in you will no longer being trained by the water, and in addition, it will reduce the ability of that water to erode the landscape. But more importantly, this is personal for me, was the planting efforts that took place in this area. And those planting efforts is what we'll be using to quantify the impact of our activities in the wider watershed on sedimentation. So under the project, we would have planted out 565 hectares, and that was through direct intervention. But if we were to look at some of the co-financing efforts that took place, complementary planting, we would have planted in excess of 1,200 hectares of land in the wider watershed. Now, to get more technical, my formula earlier, it needs to be scrutinized. Definitely source intervention plus infrastructure upgrade will equal water, but how do we prove it? So we leverage two existing technologies. And you've been hearing it all morning. Esri, ArcGIS is a lot more than just mapping. It's a matter of doing more with that data. So we looked at SWOT, which is a basin scale continuous model. And it gives us the ability to predict the impact of land management on water production and sediment heal. And we were able to then integrate this technology because it is already existing as such. SWOT, you have it as a standalone platform, but you also have it as an add-on to the Esri suite, which is known as ArcSWOT. So some of the model requirements, and as I said, we're leveraging existing data now. So you're looking at the need to have a digital elevation model. This is leveraged by using the contour information that we have internal, and we were able to convert that information into a DEM for the area. We needed land use data, and our partners at Forestry Department has been doing some really good work in this regard. We had a baseline image that was established at 2017, and we actually used that land cover data to input in as an input for the system. We also needed soils data, and we would have gotten that information from the Agricultural Land Management Division. Weather data, we partnered with Met Service in this regard, and we're able to get some good quality data coming out. And you need some data from on-flow. Now, for today's presentation, we were not looking at the flow aspect of the model, because this watershed, through the efforts of the project, we're able to get some stations done. So we're at a better place in able to get real data as opposed to relying on model data. Now, the converse in terms of sediment data collection is not true, which is why we had to rely on the capacities of the model. Now, it has been proven, again, by smarter minds than myself, that it is easier in terms of modeling to look at the baseline and simulations of land use change within a period of known climatic variables. we all can appreciate and understand that climate modeling is a very complex science, and it will lead to changes. Inevitably, there will be changes over the period. So what we do is follow the approach of Olivia et al., and I hope I have not butchered his name, but we followed his methodology, as well as we would have relied on the methodology of setting in 2018, as well as the methodology that was employed by, I can't remember the company, but they were instrumental in setting that baseline for us in terms of when we're doing the project design. So we're looking at the 2017 land use data as our baseline. We were used through modeling, we were able to demonstrate that on average, you had a yearly sediment yield of 778 tons of sediment. Now, immediately in your mind, you're saying, well, 778 tons is a lot, and it is a lot, and we've seen evidence of it being a lot. For example, when we were looking at that recent event over by Chalker River, where we saw tons and tons of sediment choking up that river. So imagine we, through our intervention, was able to, under scenario one, which is just looking at the interventions at the project level, which was the 565 hectares of planting that we mentioned earlier, we were able to demonstrate that there has been an 8% reduction in sediments coming out of the watersheds. If you were to take into consideration those complementary planting that I mentioned and looked at the whole 1,296 hectares of intervention, we were able to demonstrate that the Yellowstone project would have resulted in a 17% reduction in sedimentation coming out of the watersheds. Definitely, for sure, with any model, and we can all appreciate we're scientists, there will be uncertainties. Young et al. In 2008 beautifully described these uncertainties. Some of them is the simplifications in the conceptual model and processes that are occurring in the watershed but are not included in the model, such as, you might have a drain here or there, and you might have some one-off occurrences that we cannot really fully account for when we're doing our modeling. You are also looking at processes that are known, well, unknown, and the processes that are known, and then you have to look at the errors in the input variables such as rainfall and temperature. But we are confident that the Met Service provided us with accurate data. So within the context of our modeling efforts, what we saw as a major uncertainty was the simplification in the conceptual model. Ideally, you would want to have this modeled output verified, and we use SWOT cup. So that's another extension from soil and watershed analysis tool, which would allow us to do some amount of calibration at the end. But that is reliant on actual data coming out of the field. And unfortunately, as it now stands, those two watersheds are not being monitored for sediment. All right. But definitely, before we go, we want to leave you with a point, and it's borrowed from I think when Nelsa was here, she talked about healthy watersheds, Nelsa and Patrice. Healthy watersheds with healthy lives, and I've added a little element to it in terms of continued livelihoods. And I'll point you to Ms. Edwards, who has been a farmer in the area. Very often we have persons saying that the environment and agriculture cannot coexist, but we have demonstrated that with intervention on these agricultural lands, we can still make an impact on some of these ecosystem services that are flowing down to us here in Kingston. And with that, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out to listen to my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Andre, for your presentation. It is indeed interesting. And as I mentioned before, the Yalos and Hope project, it has a bigger name, but yes, the Yalos and Hope project, that was one of Nepa's successes in our last financial year. And Andre and Lorraine Jones actually led the charge for that project. And we have to give them kudos because they did quite a bit of work in that area. And, persons are welcomed to go in. I'm sure once you want to go in and do a tour, you can get a chance to go out there with them. We had the opportunity to go out on a tour in some areas. We also had the opportunity to partner with the Fire Services of Jamaica, the Jamaica Fire Service, and we partnered with quite a bit of persons on this project. But outside of that, though, I just want to bring to your attention one of the presentations one of the slides that Andre has shown was basically showing you that channel with water, and then you had that barren land behind. Walkability is not just about being in urban spaces. It's also being able to go into some of your areas, what we would consider to be forested areas. You know, I'm not sure how many persons have taken a trek to the Blue Mountain or the Syncona. And so it is also important to create walkable spaces in these areas where persons can go out and feel a part of nature. So we have a duty to protect and preserve and ensure that we are maintaining and keeping some of these spaces. Do you have any questions for Andrea this time? You're welcome to field your questions to us, and we will try to answer as best as is possible.
Mr. McCoy has a question. Mr. McCoy, Odin McCoy. Okay, could you bring up the, I'd like to see the chat section, please. Okay, we have a question from Mr. McCoy, is it?
Yes, are you here?
Oh, he was just making a comment. Well, he's saying well done. So,
are you hearing me?
Did you raise your hand, Mr. McCoy?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Go ahead.
Right, I just wanted to ask, I missed a little bit of a presentation, but early on you had mentioned bushfires. Did you by chance get any spatial data re bushfires, like point data and so on?
Well, at some point we would have gotten the benefit of some data coming out of, I think it was a Jamaica Fire Brigade, but the last major bushfire that we saw was around 2015, 2016. And what we've done with this model was to have it start at the reference frame of 2017. So we would have accounted, as I said, with any model, there are some uncertainties. That was for sure one of those uncertainties that we would have encountered. And that's something that we want to help use that data to improve on the model, to say for sure what the impact has been of that fire in one regard, and to then demonstrate because the need for continued intervention within these two watersheds.
All right, and the reason I asked, you see, was that I saw a new paper coming out this year by the UE Climate Studies Group. I believe that the journal is Climate Physics or something like that. The lead author was Candice Charlton. I think she's doing some studies into fire. And I find that NASA, they have this online portal called Firms, where you could see, because the satellite imagery is remote sensed, and you can pick up activity, fire activity. So I think it's a good little library. What they're doing, they're trying to establish a bushfire season for Jamaica. That's what the paper had said. So I'm just sharing it with you. I don't know if it might be helpful in the future, but it's definitely something that you could look into.
Really, it would definitely be something that we'll look into, because the whole concept of applying, leveraging remotely sensed data in wider watershed management is something that we are very passionate about here at Nepa, and it's something that we're definitely looking into the future.
All right, thanks for that. An excellent presentation, by the way. The bits that I saw was really good. Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. McCoy. At this time, I'm also going to invite persons who may have other questions. Just before we take that video from Eremon Cell, I'm going to ask you to hold on that video a bit, Mr. Akidanor, and allow for the other questions to be fielded. Do we have any other questions at this time? Of course, Andre is here, and you can always reach out to him, and you can also reach out to the projects management branch here at Nepa, and they can share with you information on this area. So that is open to not only persons internally to Nepa, but also persons who are external. You can always reach out to Nepa at any time, 876-754-7540, and you can also check us out on our website. So you can call at any time or send in your queries at any time, and we'll be able to assist you. If there be no other questions, says someone on Twitter wants to know if they can get the story map. Okay, I'm seeing here where our colleague is asking if someone wants to know if they can get the story map. So we have a process here. Yes, you can get it, but we have a process. So you'll have to basically make the request to us via an email, and we can give you that information. I also want to share with you, so we don't have any questions for Andre. If you don't, we're basically gonna move on a little bit. So I want to say thank you so much, Andre, for your presentation. It was quite insightful, and it gave us a snapshot into what is happening up there in the Yellowstone area. And of course, persons are welcome to go out there. Just take a trip to Syncona, or you can go up to JCDT, and they will allow you to do a tour of that area as well. I want to just do a little bit of what we consider to be a plenary, just so persons can be reminded of why we're here today. So the GISA is about walkability and placemaking. And I just want to say to you, what are some of the tenets of walkability and placemaking? So walkability offers surprising benefits to our health. It's also an area where you can interact. It allows for interaction. It also allows for what we call equitable interaction, because what it does, it allows persons to be in one area or in a particular realm, you know, as a pedestrian, where you can talk to persons, you can access businesses at your fingertips, and you can basically interact within your space without necessarily have to be in the transport. The other things you can also bear in mind in terms of health benefits: the average resident of a walkable neighborhood weighs 6 to 10 pounds less than someone who lives in a sprawling neighborhood. So if you have to depend on transportation all the time, it means that if you really want to shed some weight or you want to remain healthy, really and truly, you need to consider your spaces. You need to look at how you can get out there and interact in your spaces. And even where you have sprawling spaces, you can make your home, your immediate home area, a walkable space. You can create your walkways with just some stones, you know. Make the area inviting. Create your own place. Make it interesting where you'd want to go out there and walk. You can create your garden space in such a way that you have to walk through your garden. So for some of us who have access to land or our properties are large, you can do that. Where we have to be in shared spaces, such as in an apartment or townhouse setting, you can work with your other neighbors and create those kind of spaces. So it is not hard to do. It's not hard to create walkable spaces. And that is one of the things that we're really trying to encourage persons to do. In terms of your environment, 87% of your carbon emissions, carbon dioxide emissions, are from burning fossil fuels. And that's basically the dependency on transportation. So guess what? Your feet are zero pollution transportation machine. So take a walk when you can. In terms of our communities, walkability is associated with higher levels of arts, organizations, creativity, and civic engagement. So if our communities can be walkable, more power to you. What we are doing here at Nepa, in looking at the development proposals that come into us, we are trying to ensure and to promote that walkability. So we are really trying to engender and ensure that our developers are meeting some of the tenets of our development orders, some of our conditions of approval, just to ensure that you create those walkable spaces. In terms of safety, walkability is linked to improving pedestrian safety through reduced vehicular traffic and lower speed limits. Now, persons may look at safety in another area in terms of creating spaces where persons can feel comfortable to walk. So areas that are well lit, areas that have less what we consider to be corners or shadowing are areas that are also important to create that space or to provide that placemaking to encourage walkability. In terms of finances, for those of us who we have to drive and we have to pay so much for fuel, cars are the second largest household expense. And so if we can have less reliance on cars, it not only protects our environment, promote good health, create participatory communities, but it also reduces cost for fuel. So think about it and look at how best you can create your own walkability, or how we as an agency can continue to promote or foster walkability in all the plans that we do. And I want to say stay tuned, because the Smart Halfway Tree Master Plan, we have charrettes coming up where we're going to be asking persons to engage with us, and we're going to be having live charrettes where you can also assist us in creating some of those walkable spaces that you would like to see out there. I have a question, and you can get a token. The first person to tell me, I hope you are listening, what does SWAT mean? S-W-A-T. Nepa persons associated with projects or AMCD, I'd prefer if you don't answer. So what does SWAT, S-W-A-T, means? The first person to put your hand up or place it in the chat, you can get a token. I'm waiting. SWAT. S-W-A-T. If you can participate a second time, Mr. McCoy, it would really be nice if you allow somebody else to get that opportunity. So here we have, no, I never said SWAT. I said SWAT. Okay, thank you very much. Janelle, I see where you're stating soil water assessment tool. So it's a SWAT, not a SWAT, which is the strength, weaknesses, opportunity, and threat. So we're here smiling. I hope I'm not to be blamed for the pronunciation. It's a SWAT that I really wanted the answer to. And our winner right now is Janelle Morgan. Thank you, Janelle, for your participation. Oh, I'm so sorry, Camille, that it sounded like a SWAT. I needed to pronounce it differently. So it's a SWAT that we needed to know about. Sorry about that, but thank you for your enthusiasm. Okay, at this time, I'm gonna ask Mr. Akidonor if he could go ahead and do his live presentation. So over to you, Aaron Munsell. Take us quickly through the presentation.
Hope everyone is hearing me and you can see my screen.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, this is Portmore. This is along the Brayton Parkway, like as I was saying, and I'm just going to play the 3D. So these are parks that we developed, and you are looking at Palms of Portmore, going to Country Club 2, and you're looking at Ibex, and that is Silverstone behind it, and a park. This is a park in Silverstone. And then to my right, you have the rail lines. And this is the Brayton Parkway. And this is the 100-man police station. And there's a park behind it. This is the JTC bus depot in Portmore. And we're going towards Brayton Hill. And this is the Brayton Hill. And we're going back to Brayton Parkway. This is along the Brayton Parkway, and we have the new train station, Brayton train station, and you have some supersonic trains, above the head trains, going right to Kingston. So that is the Brayton train station. So you have the JET buses and you have the above the head train. So they can run right through the island. So what we are showing is how 3D can be used in planning or in geodesign. So you take an existing landscape and you can superimpose your designs on it. And these are actually electric trains. So what we are trying to do is reduce the carbon footprint. And you have parks behind the new sovereign village. And then we've put the train station. So there's a reservation by the Jamaica Railway Corporation. So we don't have to purchase new lands. It's already there in the master plan. So there, and then this is the kids park. So this is actually tools available for us in urban planning or in geodesign. And it can be used in other areas. If you want to know some other areas where you can use 3D or City Engine I mean, you can come to us at the GIS unit and then we can advise you on that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Aaron Mansell. And that is indeed an interesting streetscape presentation. We have it here live where we can share it with you some more and have further discussions. So I see where Denadine Gardner from the UDC, he basically is interested. So Denadine, you know what you can do. You can just reach out to us and we will definitely share this presentation with you. At this time, I want to ask, who was the first person on the platform, other than us guys that are setting up? Who inside of Nepa was the first person on the platform? Just show your hand. Who was the first person from Nepa on the platform? Who is that? No, remember Andre was a part of our team. So other than us, as I mentioned, who was the first person on the platform? No one wants to own it? Okay. Mr. Williams? Which Williams has their hand up? Dwight Williams, you are the first person on the platform. Okay, Dwight, we have a token for you. I know that Dr. Hersky was on, but not the presenters. We needed to be on. So Dwight Williams, we have a token for you. I also want to say on the live, for sure, I know who was on first. We had Brian Austin. And so Brian Austin of the UDC, we have a token for you. At this time, I just want to say how excited I am that we could get this webinar done. I feel like we have accomplished something. We were able to share with our colleagues and we were able to share with our partners on what GIS, what are some of the benefits of GIS. And I just want to share a little bit more before we close. Some of the functions of GIS really, it's about your data acquisition, processing your data, and this allows for data management. Data analysis, it allows for spatial and statistical analysis. Data storage, you store your data more efficiently, and data output. So you can have your maps, you can generate your maps, you can generate your graphs, your tables, your charts, just about everything it can be done through GIS. And if you may recall what Dr. Hersky said earlier, you can do your CV on it, and that's definitely something that I'm going to be doing by the end of this month. I'm going to be putting my CV on a story map so that if there is that next great opportunity, I can definitely share my story map. So why not try it? I'm sure it would be something different if someone can see a story map of your journey as a professional. For students, you can do the same thing. You can actually share your journey as a student, how active you were at school. You can share your exam papers, you know, just by putting up that story map. You can take a picture showing your grades, you know, and you can play around and have fun. So it is not hard to do. I really have to say thank you so much. I also have to say to our partners online, the UDC, Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, the Planning Institute of Jamaica, all other persons that I invited or are on. I want to say I have to big up the MSEC group. I recently completed my second master's in sustainable energy and climate change. So I invited that team to be on, and I have to thank you so much for your support. To all other persons here on this platform who are visiting with us, I have to say thank you so much. To the Nepa team members, thank you so much for coming out and giving us your support. And really, I could not do this without, I don't like to say but I have to say it today. This could not happen without my team. I have to say, big up to Era Mansell, Akidanor, Jason Keane, Damian Burton, Stacy Silvera, Deidre McLaren, and our director, Leonard Francis, our senior manager, Frances Blair. I have to big up because I accept her as part of my team. Manager for Public Education and Corporate Communication, Olivia Anderson, Travis Bartley. We have our own Diana McPherson. We have a big team. Calvin, I could not do this without you because you were here with me last night, going through with the rest of us, trying to ensure that we have this down today. So thank you all. It's indeed a pleasure working with you all. It's indeed a pleasure, to just have your support and see you out in your numbers. We appreciate you, our LAPB team, who provided, unveiled, left the place open so we could do our maps. I mean, we're in a division, but guess what? You left the place open so we could go and complete printing our maps and our banners. How beautiful is our banner here today? I just want to invite you to take a look at our mini display we have downstairs. Our display shows the then and the now. So you can take a look at some of those old instruments that we used to use to do things manually and how we have progressed to now using GIS. I have to say, National Spatial Data Management Division, you're a part of MUREC, but I have to single you out and say a special thanks to you for the support you have given us over the years. Mr. Campbell, Ranford, you're there now, you're a part of us. You are our former GIS coordinator. I see you on the chat. Thank you so much for being here and giving us the support. And we look forward to continuing to engage with you and to partner with you because we can only make Jamaica a better place. Thank you all. It is indeed a pleasure and I feel so good. And I just have to say a big wow for everyone here today. Thank you all. Yes, we can run the video. I'm not sure if the video is still up. Okay, so Mr. Barkley, you can run the video for us that we have, and persons are free to stay on and just watch that video. And have a good day, rest of the day. It was my pleasure hosting you today. Thank you. Okay, close the mic. Mic is closed. It's still running live. Oh, I'm sorry. It's still running live. So.
To navigate the path ahead, we've always relied on those who see things differently. They show us that the possible can be a matter of how you see it. Today, as change accelerates and complexity grows, now more than ever, we need those who can see what others can't to find our way forward. Over the years, many who see differently have shared with us how they see the future. Their vision continues to inspire us.
There is an urgent need to develop a science of cities.
I learned map making in the United States Navy to help peacemakers avoid battle in the first place.
We are creating a better connected and better informed citizenry.
Jobs are going to require higher levels of thinking and decision making. So GIS is important because it helps students to be lifelong learners.
This is polio, a devastating disease which we can wipe off the face of the earth. That shows the power of GIS to help us change the future.
I think the absolute cutting edge of map making has to do with mapping the brain. These are going to be some of the most intricate maps humans have ever built.
80% of the species on the planet are still unknown to science. So task number one, to try to save species, we're going to have to be doing a lot of mapping.
We emerged through our long path of evolution by using our brain. Using our brain, rivers that we've utterly polluted can be once again made to run clean and pure. Places that have been utterly destroyed can be given another chance.
If we just use the technologies, join together with our minds and our hearts, there will be a different world, one that will be happy that your grandchildren and mine will have on into the future.
Together, we have the power to choose the way forward. We have the power to see what others can't. To navigate the path ahead, we've always relied on those who see things differently. They show us that the possible can be a matter of how you see it. Today, as change accelerates and complexity grows, now more than ever, we need those who can see what others can't to find our way forward. Over the years, many who see differently have shared with us how they see the future. Their vision continues to inspire us.
There is an urgent need to develop a science of cities.
I learned map making in the United States Navy to help peacemakers avoid battle in the first place.
We are creating a better connected and better informed citizenry.
Jobs are going to require higher levels of thinking and decision making. So GIS is important because it helps students to be lifelong learners.
This is polio, a devastating disease which we can wipe off the face of the earth. That shows the power of GIS to help us change the future.
I think the absolute cutting edge of map making has to do with mapping the brain. These are going to be some of the most intricate maps humans have ever built.
80% of the species on the planet are still unknown to science. So task number one, to try to save species, we're going to have to be doing a lot of mapping.
We emerged through our long path of evolution by using our brain. Using our brain, rivers that we've utterly polluted can be once again made to run clean and pure. Places that have been utterly destroyed can be given another chance.
If we just use the technologies, join together with our minds and our hearts, there will be a different world, one that will be happy that your grandchildren and mine will have on into the future.
Together, we have the power to choose the way forward. We have the power to see what others can't.
It's all happened here. Everything we've ever known, done, loved, took place on this drifting, spinning ball that's our home. It's where we learned to provide, nurture, protect, thrive. And yet,
wildfires are scorching the West Coast, leaving behind a path of death and destruction.
Inches of rain this morning. The waters keep rising, and according to the National Weather Service,
our very success now threatens our future. Today, our greatest challenge is to learn how to grow while sustaining what sustains us. Your understanding, your science, your work are the solution. You have the power to see patterns and relationships and show us how everything and everyone are connected. You have the power to transform how we produce and consume, build and maintain, unite and strengthen, heal and nurture. You can help us see that we can no longer live apart from nature, but must live as part of it. Today, geography matters more than ever. The geographic approach, your work, and the billions of maps you make are essential for creating a more sustainable future.